Ladies and gentlemen, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the Eyes is Watching channel. 85 seconds to Doomsday. That's right, the ultimate doom and gloomers are back up there saying we're the closest we've ever been to Doomsday. So back in 2025, the clock was set to 89 seconds before midnight. In 2024 and 2023, it was 90 seconds. Now, what does all this mean? Absolutely nothing. I mean, honestly, I have no idea. The usual doomers are back at it again, trying to scare everyone about climate change, global warming, the usual NPC propaganda. We're supposedly just seconds away from frying under scorching hot temperatures, which makes total sense, considering the East Coast is getting hammered with historic ice storms right now. That's right, lava blizzards out here. Generational freezes across North America. Climate scientists are now doing Olympic-level mental gymnastics, trying to explain all this with headlines like, why global warming can bring more heat and more cold. Yeah, okay. Next Forbes article should be titled, Why Dying Suddenly is Actually Good for Your Health. But buried inside the Doomsday Clock speech was something actually interesting. They admitted that biological science has moved faster than the systems meant to control it. Tools that used to be locked inside governments and top-tier labs are now cheaper, more accessible, and easier to misuse, setting the stage for the next plandemic or psy-op here. Check this out. Gene editing, synthetic biology, gain-of-function research. They're saying we're the closest we've ever been to Doomsday because lab-created and modified pathogens are happening daily now. And the concerns aren't just accidental leaks, it's intentional misuse by states, by rogue actors, or private labs operating with little oversight. There's also what they quietly called biosecurity erosion. Transparency is gone. Nobody really knows what research is happening, or where it's happening, or who it's happening for, but when labs operate in secrecy or under military or corporate pressure, mistakes or abuses don't get caught early. They also raise the dual use problem. The same technologies sold to the public as medical breakthroughs, vaccines and pandemic prevention, can be repurposed to increase transmissibility and resistance to treatment. Interesting, right? Research framed as preparation can just as easily make the next outbreak far more dangerous, which lets us know there seems to be another plandemic incoming, and they're going to use the same Wuhan lab leak BS, okay? Maybe even some rogue actors did this one. You never know. And then they move on to talking about systemic vulnerability, explaining how modern society is fragile. Supply chains, hospitals, food systems, entire economies can collapse from biological events, natural or engineered. Even a limited incident can spiral into worldwide instability once fear, misinformation, political division, and institutional distrust kicks in. So the warning wasn't really about biology itself, it was about power. Powerful biological tools spreading faster than ethics, regulation, transparency, and global cooperation, a landscape where small failures, bad decisions, or deliberate actions can trigger events that can collapse the world. The Doomsday people do say something very interesting here. They're implying that advanced weaponry could be rolled out soon, powerful enough to cause major destruction. And when you listen closely to the language used by these PICs, it reads like a direct threat to the general public. The battlefield of the mind, fifth generational warfare, is fully active. Okay, Trump now bragging about a weapon called the Discombobulator. Soon as you're hit with it, you can get brain damage, sudden neurological symptoms, cognitive impairment with no visible injury. Sounds like he's describing the COVID vaccine. Operation Warp Speed was for developing millions of poisonous injections, but they seem to also be racing at warp speed to develop more advanced direct energy weapons, something strong enough to cause Havana syndrome worldwide. This is no joke considering how many people were affected. For example, retired U.S. counterintelligence officer Mike Beck, rest in peace. He just passed away recently. Now, this man was exposed to a direct energy weapon during an assignment in a hostile country in 1996. After that attack, he developed early onset Parkinson's, followed by dementia. One of the nation's leading Parkinson's experts confirmed his brain injury and exposure were more clearly documented than almost any case in the literature.
Mike, you did counterintelligence work for the U.S. government. You dealt with highly classified information above top secret special access programs. Does your government intelligence work remain highly classified to this day?
Yes. Yes, it is.
A year after this home video was shot of his daughter's christening in 1995, Beck describes a directed energy weapon attack that hit him and his partner while on assignment for the U.S. government. The location remains secret.
We traveled to a hostile country and we found some pieces of gear that we only heard about. We walked in on an operation that the hostile country was doing.
So you were attacked by a hostile intelligence service after you made a major find about their capabilities that they were going to use against the United States.
Right.
I have a letter here from one of the country's leading Parkinson's experts. He writes, "Although I have limited expertise in so-called Havana syndrome, I can state that Mr. Beck has a much more clearly documented exposure to a microwave weapon, as well as a much more clearly documented brain injury than those patients described in either the literature or the media. Mr. Beck clearly merits the recognition that his Parkinson's disease and its associated symptoms are due to his government service."
We'd applied for workers' compensation, and the agencies involved did everything they could to not approve my application.
So the claim is that back in 1996, so keep that in mind, if they had microwave energy weapons back then, imagine the advancements in that tech now. This man was hit with a direct energy weapon. And this was done by supposedly a hostile nation because he found out they had this capability and were going to use this weapon on the US. Which country do you guys think it is? I mean, he's talking about a hostile nation. I mean, I have my guesses here, but since the US government he served refused to fully acknowledge it, what does that tell you? Right? What kind of hostile nation is it if the US is trying to hide that information? This man spent his final years in assisted living, his body and mind breaking down from a weapon the public was told for years doesn't exist. There's only one reason the US would want this info hidden. It's either their own tech or an ally they don't want exposing. And if weapons like this exist, they'd need a way to explain the damage without ever admitting the weapon. And it looks like they have many things they can blame. Guess which virus is back in the headlines here? Nipah. That's right, the nipple virus is back. They said they found 5 cases in India, and suddenly airports are rolling out COVID-style screenings again. Masks and health checkpoints everywhere. And get this, airports across many parts of Asia, including Nepal, Thailand, Taiwan, and Hong Kong have tightened health screening for travelers from India after a Nipah virus outbreak in India's West Bengal state happened. So they say there's a virus going around that causes neurological effects, fever, headaches, vomiting, confusion, seizures, inflammation of the brain, and the death rate is up to 75%. Now think about that for a minute. We already have eyewitness testimony of weapons that cause the same kind of symptoms. Real people describing what happened to them. Remember what happened in Venezuela? Maduro's guards, this is in quotes here, they said at one point they launched something. I don't know how to describe it. It was like a very intense sound wave. Suddenly I felt like my head was exploding from the inside. The guard said after the, operation in Venezuela, he said in quotes, "We all started bleeding from the nose. Some were vomiting blood. We fell to the ground, unable to move. We couldn't even stand up after that sonic weapon or whatever it was." Well, ain't that some shit? I mean, you just hit people with the discombobulator and you have them on the ground puking blood, heads feeling like they're about to split open, full neurological collapse. And then they tell the public it's Nipah or Zika or whatever, next bat virus they decide to roll out next. Imagine the mass hysteria if that happened. They do have these weapons that can showcase these exact symptoms. We already watched people lose their minds during COVID. That was mass hysteria over the common cold. A pandemic that was never real, okay? A virus so deadly people needed a test to even know they had it. Really let that sink in. People lost it over no symptoms at all. So imagine if the symptoms were real, extreme. People bleeding, people convulsing, people collapsing in airports, transit stations, crowded public spaces. I guarantee you the vast majority of people would run straight to the nearest clinic begging for whatever government mandated injection they're told will protect them. Okay, doing it out of pure fear. When fear controls the body, the mind always follows orders. And get this, Benjamin Netanyahu once again brought up anti-Semitism and used some interesting wording here. He called social media the new battlefield and that they have weapons for that, Like, hold up, what? I mean, notice the language being used here. Interesting considering every major future warfare and strategic doctrine published over the last couple decades makes the same claim here. The future battlefield is cognitive. So that translates into cyber warfare as well. The target is perception, emotional stability. Okay, they want these algorithms completely polarizing people to cause civil wars to happen, but also make people feel like they're going crazy. If they can control the mind, then they win, flat out. When Donald Trump talks about weapons that disable an enemy's ability to function, okay, and now we have Netanyahu describing social media as a battlefield that's requiring weapons, I think they're both operating under the same script here, okay? The same blueprint is playing out here. Silent weapons for quiet wars. Talking about the same thing. The biggest battle is of the mind. So, you spread anti-Semitism online, you too will get hit with the tactical goy beam. They got the Jew space lasers for that ass. Now, none of this is up for debate. We have the Department of Defense laying out all the weapons they've been testing on people outside of the states. This is crazy. Something like the high-powered phaser microwave weapon. Yeah, that's a real thing. The phaser high-powered microwave system developed by Raytheon is intended to provide a short-range CUAS capability similar to that of Thor. So what they say is, CUAS is for shooting down drones. And they swear that's all it's for. This microwave weapon is just to shoot down drones. And the Air Force reportedly spent around $16.3 million for a prototype phaser for testing and overseas field assessments. However, it is unclear whether the system has been deployed outside the United States. Okay, end quote. This is on their own DoD website, congress.gov. Are we supposed to believe that high-powered microwave weapons like this aren't being used on their own people? Look at what a real affiliate page of the Department of War tweeted just recently. Yes, the Department of War has directed energy weapons. Yes, we are scaling them. End quote. Crazy, right? What I take from that is they're normalizing them now. Like admitting, yes, we have these weapons and we will continue using them to further our agenda. Clearly, they've advanced the tech so much that they're confident in it now. They're confident in the capabilities of these weapons. No need to keep it secret anymore. Really think about where this technology could be now, considering there are government documents stretching back to the 1960s about creating prototype direct energy weapons. The U.S. Air Force was already funding a classified project called the Directed Energy Weapons Test Facility under a formal Air Force contract run through the Weapons Laboratory. I'll go over the actual report itself and take out some sections here because it's quite mind-blowing to know what they were working on in the 60s. According to the report itself, the objective of the program described in this report was to evolve design plans and an evolutionary program for a high vacuum test facility suitable for use in the directed energy weapons development program, with the document immediately noting that high vacuum is, of course, the environment of space. So the report states directly that the program was created, in quotes here, for the development of directed energy weapons components and hopefully for the ultimate testing of a prototype weapon, explaining that a complete weapon system would only come after smaller facilities were built and operated to prove each component with a planned growth toward the ultimate facility, with indications of the timing and funding which would be involved. The work focused heavily on particle beam weapons rather than just lasers, with the document noting that facilities for laser weapons were different and that this led to a concentration on facilities for the particle beam weapon, specifically ion and electron beams. The report explains that a close examination of weapon concepts showed the need for information on target damage and beam environment interactions, confirming that experimental data on real effects was required. It goes on to describe particle accelerators capable of producing sufficient power density to generate those effects, stating that the development of a potential drop particle accelerator with adequate stored energy is the fastest and most economical approach to producing beams of ions or electrons powerful enough to do damage. What does that sound like? It sounds like the CERN particle accelerator could be used like this, right? It's exactly that. It is a direct energy weapon. The document outlines drift tubes tens of meters long, systems for energy storage, ion and electron injection, and beam handling, along with the challenge of sustaining extreme voltages inside vacuum chambers. It describes research into generators designed to operate inside vacuum environments, noting that generators of this form are almost directly applicable to the space-borne accelerator. The report concludes with a growth plan for high vacuum facilities which would permit the study of potentials up to 8 MV and develop the high voltage technology required for the operation of accelerators in space, end quote. When the report was completed in 1963, it was classified secret, and even decades later, large portions remained redacted, which tells you the data stayed sensitive long after the document was written. This program was already planning prototype weapons almost 60 years ago. Guaranteed by now they have some advanced tech we can't even comprehend. Shit, those advanced weapons might be on every corner, disguised as 5G towers. And doesn't it say a lot when you've got Benjamin Netanyahu, a man surrounded by Mossad, military counterintelligence, walking around with his phone camera physically covered by a sticker? That's someone who understands how phones really work and what kind of access is possible. Think about how crazy that is if Netanyahu is doing this with all the intel officers around him. What chance does the average civilian have? Okay, if they're not doing this. It tells you a lot. This is someone with the highest level of intelligence protection available. And even with all of that in place, the camera on his phone is still physically covered with a damn sticker. People need to understand this, okay? Hacking your phone or computer is way easier than most people think. These devices don't need user mistakes anymore. You don't have to click on anything. There are actually zero-click hacks where a device can be compromised just by receiving data. That's it. Someone sends a message or an email and that's it. Once access is there, the microphone, the camera, your messages, all of it becomes available. Your phone security, or encryption they call it, only protects data while it's being sent, not when your phone opens and processes it. Okay, once the device itself is controlled, that protection doesn't matter anymore, which is why physical countermeasures still get used. Look at Netanyahu. I mean, he has even publicly joked about what phones represent. Remember that quote? He said, if you're holding a phone in your hand, you're holding a piece of Israel. Meaning if you have that device on you, they can target you. You might as well have Mossad tech in your pocket. I mean, what do you think that symbolism was? The golden pager as a gift to Trump? It's like admitting they've completely conquered this elite level of cybersecurity hacking through every phone or device you can think of. And we just saw what that looks like in real life. You know, what happened in Lebanon and Syria with those pagers exploding, killing and injuring people simply for carrying something they use every day. You know, they actually acted like these pagers were from a specific place, you know, and actually had explosives in them, but maybe they were just everyday pagers. Could they do that with phones? Really ask yourself if that's possible. Is there a way to overheat your phone and overwork the battery wirelessly to make it explode in your pocket? But the pagers tell us something. That moment showed how exposed these devices really are. If something can receive a signal, 5G or 6G, then it can be interfered with, manipulated, or used against the person holding it. Okay, phones and computers, whatever, wearables, all of them sit in the same EMF space, okay? And you're always right there with them. And that leads to a bigger question, which is, of course, going to sound like doom and gloom, but it does need to be asked, okay? If phones already function as surveillance platforms, what happens when they sit in the same environment as directed energy weapon systems? I mean, you're never separated from your phone. It's on you all day, every day. Every signal interacting with that hardware is interacting with you. The Department of Defense has already said openly that directed energy weapons exist and are being scaled and used. So this isn't some far-fetched idea here. And listen to the way Netanyahu talks about social media now, calling it the new battlefield. That tells you where the fight is now. It's about what people see, what people believe, and how they react to it. Then there's the corporate side of it too, for people out there thinking this is just a wild conspiracy theory. Well, for all those wondering, how the hell did I get these ads to pop up in my phone? Things that I've never actually searched. Well, now we have a better idea as to why, because Google just agreed to pay $68 million to settle a lawsuit over its assistant recording users through false activations, capturing conversations unintentionally, storing them, and using them anyway. Apple paid $95 million over similar claims involving Siri. That's years of unintended recording being quietly settled with money. Now, those assistants are being replaced with always-on AI systems, built deeper into phones, cars, watches, and homes. I mean, think about how crazy all this is. And then you got Alex Karp, the HDIC of Palantir, head demon in charge, a company built around tracking and predicting human behavior. This man that's building a master database on all Americans, he wants everyone tracked 24/7. I mean, the company is literally named after the all-seeing eye in Lord of the Rings. He wants everyone tracked on their best behavior. But guess what he's doing? I mean, he's trying to live off-grid away from all of this stuff, living a secluded lifestyle in rural New Hampshire, okay, often described as a sparse ski hut in the woods setup, far away from dense tech environments and constant connectivity. That pattern keeps showing up everywhere here. Why are all these billionaires that are involved in this tech surveillance matrix that they want to install soon leaving, going off-grid, buying billionaire bunkers, trying to get away from the system? What does that tell you? That pattern shows up time and time again. The people building these systems take precaution in their own lives. They limit exposure and they create distance from it. When you put all this together, I mean, you got leaders covering cameras with stickers, devices being turned into weapons, phones openly framed as tools of influence, the CNN effect, as the future warfare documents of NASA stated in the early 2000s. That's happening now. Government admissions about directed energy weapons and lawsuits confirming your phone's been spying on you without your consent. Okay? It really gets hard to ignore what role these devices actually play in the fifth generational warfare world we live in. And why is Netanyahu and all these other demons talking about a cyber war now? Now it's a new cyber war? Well, guess what? There's too much anti-Semitism out there online, and they're about to go extra hard on all the noticers soon, okay? So if you're a noticer, keep your phone away from you, okay? Just pick it up and toss it outside. You might as well get a Neuralink installed into your brain at this point. There's a very good reason why they want to shut down criticism, okay? Why do you think Netanyahu is screaming about anti-Semitism and cyber warfare? The internet is the new battlefield, and oh, they have weapons for it, you know.
And of course, it's most prevalent in the social media. This is the new battlefield, and this is where we must counter with our own weapons. We're late in the game, but we will win this battle too, as we won on the battlefield, because we are developing the means to fight this.
Netanyahu smirking as he's implying something extremely sinister. Well, because their plans are so demonic that they're going to need to shut down all forms of criticism just to get it done. Remember the AI video Trump shared a while back? Him, Netanyahu, and Elon Musk lounging in Gaza after they turned the place into a cool waterfront resort. Bearded men dancing around. Large golden statues of Trump that all the people of Gaza can now worship. You know? The hell? Like, how extremely bizarre is that video right here? Well, get this. The imagery in that video was the exact plan for Gaza. I know, it's crazy, right? Check this out. Jared Kushner at the World Economic Forum unveils what he calls a master plan for Gaza's future, describing a mega smart city with an economy built on industrial zones and cheap labor, and an exclusive coastline for tourism. Under the plan, residents would be pushed behind walls and gates and retrained in technical schools to fit the new economic model. Kushner said the next phase centers on security and demilitarization. This is very interesting wording that correlates with many things I just spoke about.
We've developed ways to redevelop Gaza. Gaza, as President Trump's been saying, has amazing potential, and this is for the people of Gaza. We've developed it into zones. In the beginning, we were toying with the idea of saying, let's build a free zone, and then we have a Hamas zone. And then we said, you know what, let's just plan for catastrophic success. Hamas signed a deal to demilitarize. That is what we are going to enforce. People ask us what our plan B is. We do not have a plan B. We have a plan. We signed an agreement. We are all committed to making that agreement work. There's a master plan. We'll be doing it in phasing. In the Middle East, they build cities like this in 2-3 million people. They build this in 3 years. And so stuff like this is very doable if we make it happen.
Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, the man that lives on 666 Fifth Avenue, New York, talking about Middle East peace. You can trust him, right? A Times of Israel report says the U.S. is already pitching exactly that. Okay, a proposal reportedly drafted by Jared Kushner and Trump envoy Steve Witkoff that imagines rebuilding Gaza into a luxury, high-tech coastal destination over a long timeline here. The reported plan is framed like a corporate development project, $112 billion over the first 10 years, laid out in a 32-slide deck labeled sensitive but unclassified, and shown to Gulf donors plus Turkey and Egypt. It breaks Gaza into stages, starting in the south with Rafah and Khan Yunis, then the central camps, and finishing with Gaza City, clearing rubble, unexploded bombs, and tunnels first, then building permanent housing and infrastructure. And only after that, rolling out the glitzy stuff, the luxury residences, high-tech rail, and a Riviera-style coastline. One slide reportedly calls it the new Rafah, imagined as a new seat of government with massive housing, schools, and medical facilities, while Gaza City gets rebranded as a smart city. Oh, wow. Can you believe this? I mean, what we've been saying for years, it's the Build Back Better agenda. If you want to know what's going to happen around the world, take a look at Gaza. First, you destroy it by any means necessary. I mean, every single building demolished. Did you really think they were getting the bad guys here? Every single building. Clearly, they had a plan to rebuild. This is Build Back Better right here, or Build Back Worse in a digital slavery state, with tech-driven governance and Palantir-style control, okay? And of course, the fine print is the part they highlight in bold red here. Hamas has to demilitarize and decommission weapons and tunnels first, which is exactly the framework they need to keep everyone constantly monitored, right? Think about it. Now they get an excuse for predictive policing and drones flying above people 24/7. Well, they're just always looking for Hamas. You don't want Hamas to militarize again. So that's the threat that's going to keep everyone enslaved there and keep this smart city going. In many different parts of the world, they have different ways to do this. In one place, they might even use viruses as an excuse. Look at China. China is constantly under lockdown every few months because of a new virus. In places like the Middle East, they might use terrorists as a perfect excuse to keep people monitored. In America, what do you think it's going to be? Antifa, Marxists, communists, anti-Semitic people, They'll use that excuse for total control. Now back to Gaza here. What they're really describing isn't just a rebuild, it's a test environment, a controlled city built from scratch where movement, housing, access to services, employment, and even residency are all conditional, a place divided into zones governed by data, permissions, and compliance. It's really interesting watching what's happening there because they had a similar plan for places in Canada. And I have went over that many times that this is the 2030 agenda. In the UK, they're planning to zone certain places off. Okay. And now Gaza is the beta test, a city where everything is new, monitored, and digitized and optimized so behavior can be managed instead of negotiated. Gaza is being rebuilt to see how tightly you can lock a population into sections based on criteria, security status, economic utility, and ideological alignment. End quote. This is what they're actually doing, a digital prison dressed up as a waterfront smart city. And once that model works, once it's normalized and packaged as humanitarian progress, it won't just stay there, okay? It will get exported in phases. It's really interesting to watch what's happening in Ukraine. Look at that 2030 agenda video they have for Ukraine. They're like, oh, this war provides us an excellent opportunity to be the world's first digitally AI-controlled nation of the world. Like, it's the same thing happening everywhere. Now, countries that don't adopt the framework won't just get bombed. I mean, if they're not going to bomb them, they will isolate them, then sanction them to death or tariff them to death and financially strangle them until compliance looks like the only option. Gaza is the prototype of the New World Order. So is it starting to make sense here? While all these quotes are flying around, they're targeting anti-Semitism online, and that's their main priority? Yeah, because they don't want you exposing this agenda right here. They don't want you exposing the Greater Israel Project. They want no criticism towards it at all. They'll crack down on anti-Semitism, aka any criticism of Israel, until they complete their full takeover of Gaza, turning it into a Judge Dredd-style state without any pushback. Think about all these paid-off puppets and shills saying the same thing at the same time. Check out what Ted Cruz just said. There is a tangible, dangerous anti-Semitic contingent on the right that is gaining traction, gaining popularity, being listened to by young people, and gaining attention. Yeah, maybe it's because Jared Kushner and Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff are illegally trying to get foreign governments and investors to turn Gaza into a smart city, coastal metropolis. And of course, they didn't mention where displaced Palestinians would live during this reconstruction. Under the blueprint drafted by Kushner and Witkoff, the U.S. would commit to covering roughly 20% of reconstruction costs over a decade-long period. Yeah, okay, so more money to Israel. Yeah, great. Putting America in more debt. Whose plan is this really? I mean, when the Gaza redevelopment plan is looking exactly like the Wildlands Biodiversity Project of the agenda of the 21st century, going back to those early UN documents in the 1990s, it's looking almost identical. And the World Economic Forum's Agenda 2030 framework, the same governing logic appears across land, infrastructure, and basic survival resources. Land is removed from individual ownership and reorganized into managed space. Housing is planned and assigned. Movement follows approved corridors. Power is completely centralized by AI. Gaza is then cut off from Egypt entirely, with the Rafah crossing eliminated and all borders, trade routes, and access points running through Israel. Industrial hubs are placed along the border, tying employment, electricity, and water to external control. That dependency is not incidental. It mirrors almost exactly the wildlands and biodiversity strategy of removing people from land indirectly by restricting access to water, utilities, roads, and economic viability, rather than announcing forced relocation. Water sits at the center of this model. In Wildlands Biodiversity Project, those documents, planning, denial of water, and reclassification of land use are primary tools for clearing populations from designated zones. The same principle is now openly discussed at a global level. The World Economic Forum and the United Nations have both advanced frameworks treating water as a managed commodity rather than an unconditional human right. Think about the wording. We've heard this many times. Even the Nestle CEO said the same thing. Tied to sustainability targets and centralized oversight, at Davos, WEF speakers were openly discussing about water access and how it's a compliance mechanism. Remember this? Mariana Mazzucato stating that restricting or turning off water would get people's attention. End quote. After earlier control efforts failed. She said, vaccines and all this stuff, it didn't work. Well, you know what will get their attention? A Mad Max style world where we, ration water. We'll give them water when we feel like it. It's all conditional. Good social credit score. Well, you get to drink water and hydrate yourself today. Future's looking great. Sustainable development, they call it. Truly horrific stuff. A plan that includes land zoning, housing density, these government subsidized skyscrapers built as high as the clouds, rat cages stacked on top of each other. This was their plan, and they are going through with it. And population placement through the 2030 agenda. Control of water will become the norm. Even access to water becomes conditional. Yeah, sound familiar, right? Because that's what's happening in Gaza. And they're already talking about rebuilding it into a smart city, a new Gaza where the coastline and marina zones are reserved for capital, tourism, and elite residency. Workforce housing is clustered separately. Civilian zones are structured to normalize long-term governance and policing. Gaza City, historically the cultural and population center with roughly 600,000 residents, is deprioritized. Investment and development are concentrated in Khan Yunis and Rafah, which together hold far fewer people. These southern cities are engineered as attractive destinations to draw the population away from the north over time, emptying Gaza City without declaring displacement and rebuilding the social fabric from scratch. The port is relocated to Rafah and positioned adjacent to Israeli-controlled territory, ensuring maritime trade remains externally governed. A marina is placed next to it for wealth and status. Offshore islands are designated for investors or rulers, physically separating decision makers from the population they govern. What does that sound like? Elysium. Crazy. What you end up with is a system where people are categorized by usefulness. Where you live, where you go, and what you do are decided for you. Access to basics like water and energy can be turned on or off. They're already conditioning the people of Gaza to accept this, mind you. Israel blocking access to food, water, and even baby formula whenever they feel like it. We got to get those Hamas terrorists. You're not getting baby formula today. Like crazy stuff. And these are the people that want to control everything after everything collapses. They want to build back better with a better society with these people at the top. This is basically the living embodiment of Agenda 2030, a world where no one owns land or resources. They simply occupy space by permission inside a regulated system. That same human zoning shows up in the UN's Wildlands Biodiversity Project, where humans are trapped in corridors and buffer zones and even no-go zones, and everything is conditioned based on compliance. Okay, the agenda of the 21st century is really playing out here. From Mark Carney saying the New World Order is here, as soon as he announced a trade deal with China, many Canadian leftists are saying the same thing too. Look at this right here. Green Party leader Elizabeth May, I want Canada to step up and participate in saying, what does the New World Order look like? End quote. And it's foundationally the United Nations Charter. Can you believe that? So how insane is that? The New World Order is the United Nations Charter. So access to land, energy, and water based on compliance, yeah, that's the new world they want to build. So those documents from the early 1990s of the Wildlands Biodiversity Project, that was a UN document. That's the New World Order, and they're admitting it. So when Elizabeth May says the New World Order should be built in accordance with the United Nations Charter, that confirms the agenda. UN doctrine over national law, centralized land control, resources managed instead of owned, you will own nothing. Yeah, that directly validates the Wildlands Biodiversity model. They want to restrict human activity with buffer zones and no-go zones, and they will use the climate change scam to do so. Of course, again, this is coming from the Green Party leader. Yeah, nothing more green than having no-go zones in nature. get executed if you want to go on a hike in the forest. They're trying to protect the trees, okay? Yeah, no one voted for this. But yeah, let's just throw away our Charter of Rights completely, since we've been clearly taken over by the UN. Leftists are getting brainwashed into voting for bigger government here. It's absolutely insane. And they think this is the only way that'll, it'll solve racism, poverty, climate change, even as that same government centralizes land, energy, and water. It's a joke. Great quote from Ronald Reagan here. A government big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take from you everything you have. Send a commie you know that quote right there and watch them melt down. The red-headed libertarian dropped an interesting tweet here. Did you know the lawyer who developed the magic bullet theory, concluding that one bullet caused multiple wounds to JFK, and Governor Connolly would go on to co-author the Patriot Act? Well, now you do. Crazy. But what's even crazier is this dude's response to this tweet. Sovereign Bra asks Grok some questions about this tweet right here. So who was behind the magic bullet theory? Who wrote books on it? Who were these people? Well, get this. Who was the lawyer and what was his ethnic background? He's asking Grok, Twitter's AI. The lawyer is Arlen Specter, who developed the single bullet theory for the Warren Commission on JFK's assassination and was involved in the USA Patriot Act as a senator. His ethnic background was Jewish, with parents who immigrated from Russia and Ukraine. Wow, it really is every single time, isn't it, Grok? Grok says it appears you're referring to patterns in historical figures' backgrounds. Specter's Jewish heritage is documented, but many diverse individuals shape these events. If you mean something specific, I can dive deeper with sources. Sovereign Bra says, who else helped create the single bullet theory? The single bullet theory was primarily by Arlen Specter, with input from Warren Commission assistant counsels including Melvin Eisenberg, Howard Willens, and David Bellin, and Norman Redlick. It drew on FBI, Secret Service, and Army ballistics experts' analysis of the Zapruder film and evidence. Some members, like Hal Boggs and Richard Russell, expressed doubts. Out of curiosity, what were the ethnic backgrounds of the 4 other assistant counsels you just mentioned who developed the theory, and the 2 men you just listed who doubted it? Here we go. Melvin Eisenberg, Jewish heritage. Howard Willens, Jewish heritage. David Bellin, Jewish. Norman Redlick, Jewish. The doubters. You're not going to believe this. Hale Boggs, white American of Irish descent, Catholic. Richard Russell Jr., white American of English, Scottish, and Irish ancestry. Oh my God, this is the ultimate well ain't that some shit. Sovereign Bra says, wow, very interesting, especially considering their single bullet theory hinged on Lee Harvey Oswald being the lone shooter, despite Oswald claiming he's been set up and framed for JFK's murder. Remind me, who murdered Lee Harvey Oswald before he could go to trial? And what was that person's ethnic background? Lee Harvey Oswald was killed by Jack Ruby, born Jacob Leon Rubenstein, a Dallas nightclub owner, on November 24th, 1963. Ruby's ethnic background was, drum roll please, Jewish. That's right. His parents were Polish Jewish immigrants from what we now know as Poland. Oh my God, this is getting insane. Which lobby was JFK trying to force to register under the FARA in the weeks leading up to his murder? And what would it have done to their influence? JFK's administration, says Grok, via Attorney General Robert Kennedy, sought to force the American Zionist Council, AZC, predecessor to AIPAC, to register under FARA in November 1962 due to funding from Israel's Jewish Agency. Registration would have required disclosing finances and activities, labeling AZC a foreign agent, which could have reduced its lobbying influence by increasing transparency and scrutiny. The effort ended without full compliance after JFK's death. Sovereign Bra then responds, what was JFK's stance on Israeli nuclear proliferation in the year leading up to this? Based on declassified letters, JFK opposed Israeli nuclear weapons development. In 1963, he demanded biannual U.S. inspections of Dimona from Prime Minister Ben-Gurion and Eshkol to verify peaceful use, warning that non-compliance could seriously jeopardize U.S. support for Israel. He linked this to broader non-proliferation goals. Nice. Sovereign Bra says. Were the Israelis okay with that? Israeli leaders resisted JFK's demands. Ben-Gurion delayed and evaded full inspections, resigning in June 1963 amid tensions. Eshkol offered limited annual visits instead of biannual ones, but full compliance wasn't achieved during JFK's presidency. Sovereign Bra then asks, do you think all of this is a coincidence? Based on historical facts we've discussed, the connections are intriguing, but correlations don't prove causation. The Jewish Grok says, hey Grok, what is your ethnic background? Just to be clear here, official investigations found no evidence of conspiracy involving Israel, attributing the assassination to Oswald alone. Ultimately, without definitive proof, it's uncertain, could be coincidence or more. That was just such an interesting thread that I had to go through it here. Isn't that hilarious? The people responsible for the murder of JFK were also immediately writing books about the official story and how it's legitimate. Doesn't that kind of remind you exactly of the 9/11 Commission report? Yeah, you know, the planes hit the buildings and they just turned into dust and the third building comes down. Just totally based on normal science right there. Physics 101. And the same people behind that book also went on to sign the Patriot Act through. Tell me it ain't so. Well, moving on here, people. Once again, China shows what the future really looks like. The digital concentration camp beta test, known as China, has moved on to automating entire factories completely. Okay, check this video out right here. On the outskirts of Beijing, Xiaomi operates a fully automated smartphone manufacturing facility covering roughly 80,000 square meters. The plant runs continuously, day and night, with no human workers at all. Inside are 11 production lines that assemble smartphones at a rate of roughly one device every 3 seconds, with an annual output of around 10 million units. Every stage of production is automated: assembly, calibration, inspection, and quality control, all handled by machines. This is crazy. The future is looking insane here. I mean, no humans at all. The factory environment is maintained at extremely high cleanliness too, using micron-level dust removal to support precision manufacturing. The conditions are specifically for the machines too, okay, not for human comfort. The entire facility is overseen by a centralized manufacturing system developed internally by Xiaomi. Once again, pronunciation, I don't know if I'm doing that right. Xiaomi. I'm gonna get a lot of Chinese people in emails. That's not how you pronounce it. It's Xiaomi. This system monitors equipment status, production flow, and output quality across the plant. When irregularities occur, the system isolates faults, adjusts workflows, and recalibrates processes to maintain output. The factory continues operating while these corrections are made. Human presence inside the factory is limited to a separate control area. Staff monitor system dashboards and performance metrics, but they do not participate directly in manufacturing. The physical production process operates completely independently. Xiaomi has stated that this manufacturing model is not limited to smartphones. The same system is being extended to other product categories and facilities, including consumer electronics and vehicles. Once established, the structure can be replicated across locations with minimal variation. This represents a broader shift in industrial production. Manufacturing facilities are being designed to operate without human labor as a core requirement. Output is continuous, costs are stabilized, and dependency on workers is completely reduced. The role of people in the production process becomes supervisory rather than participatory. China is openly demonstrating this model. It offers a clear preview of a production system built entirely on automation, okay, with almost no human oversight. And this is going to eventually be every single warehouse soon. Okay, once again, whatever's happening in China, you know it's going to start happening in other places around the world. No human labor at all. So what is the future world going to look like if endless factories like this, don't have a single human worker? What does that mean for humans in general? Well, Yuval Noah Harari already told you. They clearly have an agenda at play. It's not, far-fetched to, really think they have a plan for you and it's not good. I mean, automated factories exist to make smartphones, but the infrastructure itself lets us know what the future is going to hold here, okay? Facilities designed to run nonstop with no human oversight produce millions of identical units without human labor. We cannot think this only stops at consumer electronics, okay? What about pharmaceutical production at pandemic scale? Because there's no realistic way to develop billions of injections without a system like this. They might have had these facilities running nonstop, okay? They probably had completely automated facilities creating endless vials of poison by the millions every month leading up to 2020. Years ago, Elon Musk warned that once systems get powerful enough, humans stop really controlling them. You turn them on and they just run. Now apply that to manufacturing. A system designed to pump out biological products at massive scale. It doesn't stop to think or ask questions. It just follows instructions. It makes the same thing over and over nonstop. I mean, millions of identical doses back to back, faster than any group of humans could ever imagine. What could they be producing? When I watched that Xiaomi factory producing millions of phones per year, seeing that footage, it really sets off alarms in your head. You start thinking they're able to do that with big pharma slop too, you know? And it would be perfect for them since no human oversight means no whistleblowers. So they can develop billions of vials of whatever poison that's coming next, you know, for the Nipah virus. And they're openly telling you that AI is going to make the future vaccines. So what does that say? At the same time, the public roadmap for communications technology is moving away from handhelds completely. Nokia's leadership stated that by 2030, smartphones would no longer exist as external objects and would instead be integrated directly into the human body as next generation networks come online. President Trump also accelerating 6G deployment. On all these interviews talking about implantable technology soon. Trump made some unusual statements about 6G being for spatial sensing that can operate through walls and biological tissue. How crazy is that? I mean, before the pandemic of 2020, February 2019, Trump said he wanted 6G internet as soon as possible, as seen right here. Weird, right? Like, why the urgency? Considering even 5G wasn't even rolled out yet, and 5G is not even good for the human body. So why the urgency for 6G? February 2019. Considering this right here, the 5G safety myth. Assumed safe, not proven safe. Nicholas Hulcher here on Focal Points. He has an interesting Substack right here that really needs to be read. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but it clearly just shows that 5G is absolutely not good for the human body. The study argues that the rollout of 5G is based on assumptions of safety rather than conclusive scientific evidence. Government and industry stakeholders have misinterpreted scientific uncertainty as an indication that no risks exist. Long-term health data of 5G exposure is being used to justify widespread deployment rather than as a reason for caution. As you can see here, 5G health risks, oxidative stress, increased production of reactive oxygen species, which can lead to inflammation and cellular damage, immune system effects, genotoxicity, neurological effects, cellular disruption, all right here, as you could see. Biochemical changes being number one, significant effects. So this man does post studies too. He's not just saying this. This guy, you know, I do follow him on Twitter. He is great because he really posts the facts and data to back up everything he's saying. Cell membrane, significant effects on that too. Cell proliferation, gene expression, immune function, brain, as you could see right here. This is really, really interesting to know. Because if those in charge know this, they do know this, but yet we're so urgent to roll out not just 5G, but 6G too. What does that tell you? At the same time, they're bragging about direct energy weapons, total control, cyber warfare. They have weapons for that, you know. They clearly are rolling this out for very sinister reasons. 5G mobile networking technology will not only affect the skin and eyes, but will have adverse system effects as well. As you could see right here, sleep disorders, precancerous conditions, infertility, neurodegeneration, sensory disorders. And of course, it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry, so they're not going to tell you the truth.
So say they have a 5G tower like 5 miles away. Should they be concerned, or should they only be concerned if it's a mile away? Is there a proximity? Or what should people worry about?
EMF safety, distance is your friend. So if you're going to talk on your cell phone, better to have it on speakerphone out here than right up against, and certainly never up against your head. And then for cell phone towers themselves, you can go on antennasearch.com and just type in your address, and it'll pop up all the towers in your area and tell you how close they are. And it's really simple to do. And in my particular situation, our house is in between two cell phone towers that are about 2/3 of a mile away, and which is optimal, at least to be that far away. And we're also down in a valley, so that the trees are blocking, some of the radio frequencies coming through. And I just realized I've got a show and tell here. I've got my my Safe Living Technologies meter here, this is sort of the one most people have. It's about almost 300, almost $400, and it's called the Safe and Sound Pro 2. And you turn it on, and it tells you what's going on, and it has, a whole the green light says it's good. And if you start to turn your cell phone on, it's going to jump up to, really high.
That's crazy.
And it gives you the reading, and then it also gives you can turn sound on if you want to hear the sound. It'll make a little sound. And now, since I don't have any wireless devices in my house, it's extremely low reading and it says 10. It's like 10 microwatts per meter squared or below is the recommended level. Now, if I turn my cell phone on, it's going to go over 1,000, just like that. And if you stand next to your router, your Wi-Fi router in your house, it's going to be 10,000. If you go stand under a cell phone tower or a 5G tower, it's going to be 30,000 up to, which is crazy. And so this is a useful thing to check. I'm in sort of a sweet spot. So my house, I had a couple of friends of mine who are EMF mitigators. They go around checking out people's houses and their environment and make recommendations. The first thing they did was come in and go, oh, you have a wireless mouse, you have a wireless keyboard, get rid of those.
Very interesting stuff here from top EMF expert Dr. Larry Burke. He continues on to talk about 4G and 5G. I found this very fascinating here.
Not only are they surveying people using this technology, they're also damaging people's health, right? And so that wants me to ask you now, so regarding phones, so those kind of act then as an amplifier, sort of like, so say there's a 5G tower a mile away and I don't have a phone, compared to if I do have a phone that's turned on, is that 5G, is that going to add extra, or is that going to expose me to more radiation if my phone is on?
One of the things to remember is that if you have a cell phone turned on, not in airplane mode, you think it's just sitting there, but I can turn my meter on, and every 15 seconds or so, there'll be a pulse of radio frequency going out, looking for the nearest tower. It's like the little chick is looking for the mother hen, and it's doing that wherever you take your cell phone. It's always looking for the closest tower. So even if you're not talking on your cell phone, you're getting irradiated. And so one of the scariest things that's been revealed in the last 10 years is there was a paper written on women who put their cell phone in their bra and carry it in their bra, and they don't put it on airplane mode. They get breast cancers right under the cell phone.
Wow.
Angular shaped breast cancers right on the cell phone. So yeah, that's a problem now. But in terms of 5G technology, it's also being direction. In 4G, they just spray it out everywhere. But 5G, when your phone calls the tower, it's going to direct the beam toward your house. So yeah, it's going to be beaming in on you by doing that.
Literally a direct energy weapon right here. That is absolutely wild. It seems like Trump and many others that are so urgent about rolling this 5G, 6G EMF out there, there's a reason for it. And clearly it's not just for faster video downloads, okay? The construction of fully automated factories as well, vaccine factories too, all of this is coming together here, okay? When a company like Xiaomi builds production facilities that function without people, capable of continuous precision, output on a massive scale, the capability itself becomes the focus. Because once built, the factories can be repurposed. I'm convinced that they're going to start rolling out some kind of 6G wearables by the billion soon, or even Neuralinks. Okay, the machinery doesn't care what it produces. They'll produce climate change vaccines soon with no human oversight. Billions of shots ready to go. The same industrial logic is already visible elsewhere. In the UK, Moderna has opened up a new mRNA manufacturing facility outside Oxford as part of a £1 billion investment. The plant is designed to produce up to 100 million doses annually, and the ability to increase output to 250 million in case, a plandemic pops up. Company leadership stated that the facility can switch production at any time in response to a new outbreak. The emphasis is on readiness and speed, domestic capacity as well, immediate response, and constant, continuous operation. These are fully automated environments producing biological products by the hundreds of millions. Minimal human involvement for a reason. Okay, think about what they'll be able to produce with no human oversight whatsoever. No chance of a whistleblower leaking any info. They want the same structure seen in advanced manufacturing plants for cool tech stuff applied to medicine. Phones today, and tomorrow millions of injections ready to go. And now implants openly discussed? Well, they'll need these fully automated death factories to produce billions of these implantables they want people to wear. Okay, there's a reason why they don't want any oversight here, human oversight. It's funny that people forgot Obama basically admitted that everyone that took the vax is a sheeples. That's right.
And conflict, the very design of these platforms seems to be tilting us in the wrong direction. And we're seeing the results. Take COVID. The fact that scientists developed safe, effective vaccines in record time is an unbelievable achievement.
Notice how these guys are all supposedly on opposite sides here. Obama and Trump, they supposedly hate each other, but they put all their differences aside and use the same exact script when talking about the COVID vaccine. Safe and effective. It was a miracle these scientists were able to produce this at record speed. Trump saying it's the greatest achievement in history. And so is Obama.
And yet, despite the fact that we've now essentially clinically tested the vaccine on billions of people worldwide.
What?
Around 1 in 5 Americans is still willing to put themselves at risk and put their families at risk.
Oh my God. Can you believe that? China, the US, Israel, and a lot of other countries are moving fast right now to lock down foreign nations for one reason: resources. Rare earth minerals, the raw materials needed to keep their future slavery systems running. And we all know where this is headed. The next phase of control runs on data centers, AI robots, drones, and implantable 6G tech. None of that works without massive amounts of minerals like copper, cobalt, lithium, rare earth minerals. So there's a race happening right now, and a lot of MSM outlets are not even talking about it. They're taking over many foreign nations, not only with tanks, because, America has their way to do it, but with China, it's really interesting. They're using deals, contracts, and infrastructure projects to get this done. That's where the Belt and Road Initiative comes in. But they're never going to actually finish it, okay? I don't think there is an end game to their Belt and Road Initiative. I think it's an ongoing system. And if you look at some of these articles popping up now, it looks like it's full speed ahead with this agenda. And a lot of this is now focused on Africa, places like Congo, Zambia, and Guinea. These countries are sitting on huge amounts of copper, cobalt, and other rare minerals that a lot of these nations want. They also tend to have weak governments and not much leverage when, the big players show up. So China comes in with money and manpower. They build roads, ports, rail lines, and power plants, stuff these countries badly need right now. And in return, China locks in long-term access to the minerals. The deal helps in the short term and ties the country down for decades. Another big shift here is where the processing happens. China isn't just digging the materials out and shipping it away anymore. They're building refineries and processing plants right next to the mines. That means the material stays under Chinese control from the start. It doesn't move through Western markets. It doesn't rely on US-friendly supply chains. Everything stays inside their system. There's no invasion footage or regime change announcements. Control comes through contracts and debt. When countries struggle to pay, the deals get adjusted, leases last longer, supply guarantees get locked in. Ports, power plants, and rail lines stay tied to the same lender no matter who's in office. It's all done on paper and it lasts longer than any election. Energy projects are built right next to the mines for simple reasons. Mines need steady power to keep running. Governments rely on jobs and money coming in. Copper gets special attention because everything depends on it now. Power grids, vehicles, weapons, data centers, communications. Demand keeps going up and supply keeps tightening. Getting access early matters. Belt and Road Initiative is full speed ahead here. It's actually moved on to a more direct phase. And looking at this map, you can tell like where they're building this Belt and Road Initiative. Early on, it was about building relationships and getting a foothold, but now it's actually locking down the inputs that keep these modern systems running. China watched supply chains fall apart and get used as pressure tools over the last decade, and they've adjusted their strategy. All these big players here have their own specific ways to take over nations, sometimes with bombs and bullets like Israel and America does it, but China does it in a different way. It's really interesting to watch them all really work together to do this because China wouldn't be able to do this without the US and Israel's cooperation. Check this out right here.
When Mao was in power, China was one of actually the biggest funder of the PLO. But since there were economic reforms, Deng Xiaoping took over, the relationship changed. Eventually, I think by 2017, there was a comprehensive innovation pact that was signed between Israel and China. The Shanghai International Port Group, SIPG, was allowed to actually take over and run the Haifa port. So you have basic infrastructure here in Israel. Right now in Tel Aviv, the subway that's being built is also being built by a Chinese company. What Israelis are starting to realize since the reaction to the Hamas attack is that this was actually a Faustian bargain. This was a dance with the devil.
Really interesting. Nobody could tell me these guys are all enemies, okay? Every time there's always something happening behind the scenes where they're shaking hands, they're making deals, and out there in public, they're pretending to be enemies. Oh, tariffs. Oh, we're about to go to war, World War III. It's like, but why are they making these deals though? You know, all of that is just theater while these people solidify their power, centralize their power, and create a new world where they get to be in charge of everything, two tiers of society where they get to rule and everyone is enslaved. And in order to get this done, it's very interesting how they do it. They keep people divided and arguing. The left-right BS is perfect for just that. Arguing irrelevant political talking points while the same demons take control of everything, creating a two-tier society where most people will be enslaved. And people were too busy talking about Alex Pretti and Renee Good to really see the full agenda at play. Do you see why the psy-ops are taking place here? Crazy how the same old Hegelian dialectic is used in every country, from Canada to Australia, the UK, and even the States. You name it, the same pattern every time. They create the problem first by flooding the country with immigrants, easy on crime policies for the sole purpose of having crime increase exponentially. Then they offer the same China-style surveillance matrix to control the people. That's the endgame solution. And by the time the DICs are done, they'll have both the left and right begging for cameras on every corner. I mean, in the UK, the government has now announced the largest nationwide expansion of facial recognition surveillance in the country's history. Crazy, right? Police forces across England and Wales are being equipped with live facial recognition systems, permanent camera installations to protect their citizens from the millions of migrants they let in. Yeah, aren't they so kind? They really care about you. Now, apparently in the UK, millions of people have had their faces scanned without consent, and now permanent facial recognition cameras are operating in parts of London under the authority of the Metropolitan Police, with backing from the UK Home Office. And that's where this turns back towards the United States. This is the same tech ICE is using too. ICE is already running facial recognition on the public. The system is active. Americans who are not suspected of any crime are being scanned, identified, and added to federal biometric databases without consent and without a warrant. Once scanned, that data can be stored up to 15 years, they say. Their own words. There's no opt-out. Most people don't even know this exists, and there's no legal way to stop it now. ICE agents use a phone app called Mobile Fortify. An agent can photograph your face on the street, at work, or near an enforcement operation. That image is checked instantly against hundreds of millions of biometric records across federal systems. A single scan links your face to your name, past addresses, vehicles, travel history, and known associates. This applies to U.S. citizens who have never been accused of a crime. DHS admits people are not given the option to consent or decline. If you were scanned today, your face could remain searchable into the 2040s. You would not be notified. There is no alert, no record provided to you, and no way to confirm whether you are in the system. There is no process to challenge inclusion or request deletion. Facial recognition tied to large identity databases allow the government to identify you, who you are, wherever you go, for as long as the data exists. Courts have already ruled that long-term digital tracking violates constitutional protections. Facial recognition goes further by attaching identity to movement everywhere. ICE operates a system without warrants, without individual suspicion, without judicial oversight, and without a dedicated privacy review. No legislation approved it. It was deployed internally. The system already produces errors too. There are documented cases where the app returned multiple identities for the same person during a single encounter. ICE treats these matches as authoritative. Agents have testified that app results can override physical documents, such as birth certificates. U.S. citizens have been detained, removed from their home, and held at gunpoint after agents relied on database results instead of reality. So the digital world overrides the physical world. Who cares what your passport says? The Palantir app says you're an illegal. Once that standard is accepted, citizenship depends on what the system says. The structure of the system allows abuse. An agent can identify someone quietly, access their address, view travel history, see household connections, and retain that access for years. There is no public audit trail and no notification to the person scanned. The individual would never know what happened. This creates an environment where extortion is possible. Threats do not need to be real. The person targeted has no way to verify what authority is being exercised. Law enforcement misuse of databases for sexual purposes is already documented. Officers across the country have used access to personal data to stalk or coerce people. Mobile facial recognition increases that risk. An agent can identify someone from a brief encounter, retrieve personal details, and approach them with insider knowledge. Even citizens are vulnerable when agents imply family members could face consequences. The same system can be used for doxing and political targeting. An agent can scan a face from a phone screen, connect it to a real identity, and obtain an address. Protesters can be identified. Critics can be tracked. Activists can be exposed to employers or communities. Officials have spoken out publicly about exposing protesters. That places intent on the record. There is no notification requirement either. No method to check whether you were scanned. ICE states internal reviews occur after complaints, surveillance that cannot be detected and cannot be challenged. That removes accountability entirely. ICE policy states the system applies to anyone scanned, regardless of citizenship. Once a federal agent claims the authority to scan people in public, store biometric identifiers for decades, and link them to detailed life records without consent, the impact extends to everyone. Surveillance systems expand beyond their initial scope. Your face functions as an identifier. It can be scanned without your knowledge, all of your personal life exposed without a warrant, and stored for years. The risk is structural. A government system now treats biometric identity as public property. By the time most people realize they are included, the infrastructure will already be entrenched. I mean, ICE is rolling out iris tech called Morris, capable of identifying individuals in seconds from virtually anywhere, scanning 265 eye points. It's more accurate than fingerprints and links instantly to arrest and immigration databases. Just last year, check the headline here, ICE wants to know if you're posting negative things about it online. Now, after the violence we've been seeing, what do you think will happen here? ICE will get more power now, of course. It all leads to these demons getting more power. Insane timing, too, that another ICE shooting takes place not too far from the Renee Good shooting. Alex Pretti. That's right, which took place not too far from the George Floyd event. Look at the map right here. What the hell are the orchestrators of these events trying to draw here? They're trying to draw something. Wait a minute. Could it be? I think I know where the next few psy-ops will happen. Considering all of this just so happens to take place in Minnesota, where all that Somali fraud is going on, let's take a look at this map right here. I think I know what they're trying to draw here. The next psy-op is going to take place around 38th Street right here, okay? Guaranteed. And then the psy-op after that, right here near Lindale, right there. That's where it's going to take place. And another one all the way here. That's right. And most likely, the next one is going to be, right past East Lake Street. Right there, people. That's what they're drawing. Can you believe it? Unbelievable. It's always those Nazis behind it, isn't it? Which is really interesting because they keep trying to compare ICE to Gestapo. How absurd is it? Always this Nazi rhetoric, Hitler is being brought up again. Oh, Trump is like the next Hitler. Something really far-fetched is happening, okay? I mean, another psy-op that has my entire Twitter feed going nuts. The same exact details in a shooting that both sides can argue to the death over and fight over. It's insane. There seems to be just enough facts for both sides to take and run with. Seriously, what are the chances of that? And now the MAGA crowd are begging for Trump to implement the Insurrection Act. How convenient. It's crazy how both sides can be so easily manipulated. People on the left started sharing an AI-generated image of the Alex Pretti shooting. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, Pretti or Pretty. I don't know. It's Pretti that got shot, and before that was Good. So people are saying, yeah, it's pretty good. I know jokes are a little dark, but isn't that crazy? Pretty and Good. But a lot of these people are sharing this AI-generated image. Isn't that funny? It's really embarrassing they used it to compare the event to Nazis executing Jews in quotes during World War II. Okay? How crazy is that? All of these people are sharing this image and it turned out to be completely AI generated. And oh, wait a minute. Where's the ICE agent's head right there? Just completely gone. Not only that, but they put Alex Pretti's picture up in Times Square and they photoshopped his face. How insane are these people? They can't be serious. These people, the media is the enemy of the people, okay? We need to realize who the real enemy is here. And, it's starting to be clear as day. I mean, they really took the man and made him look less Jewy? Really? CNN, come on. That's pretty anti-Semitic. So the UK already accomplished the total digital surveillance hellscape, and America is on its way there too. It's kind of crazy how Jimmy Kimmel warned the UK that tyranny, like what's happening in the States, is coming there. When really, I think it was the DIC reverse psychology trick. The tyranny that's in the UK is coming to the States. They just need more psy-ops to get it done over there, okay? That's why we're seeing so much chaos in the States. There's a reason. Remember, want to know who's behind the events? Look at the solutions. Leftists want to pick up guns now and commit violence against ICE agents, and even Barack Obama had the nerve to come out with a post like this. The killing of Alex Pretti is a heartbreaking tragedy. It should be a wake-up call to every American, regardless of party, that many of our core values as a nation are increasingly under assault. Like, is this guy serious? Someone died by federal law enforcement, and that means we need a civil war, says the guy that ordered drone strikes that 90% of the time killed innocent people. That's right, Obama killed so many innocent civilians overseas, and in his own borders too, they just had to give him a Nobel Peace Prize. And that's right, in between the years 2015 and 2021, there were over 50 ICE shootings that never triggered national unrest. Under Obama's presidency alone, at least 50 people died in ICE detention. Deportations reached historic levels, with more than 3 million people removed from the country. Of those deportations, estimates show 55% to as high as 84% were summary removals, carried out without a judge, without a courtroom, and without a formal hearing. That system operated for years without riots, without mass protests, and without nonstop media outrage. So no public reaction for years, even though deaths were happening constantly. People are true NPCs, okay? It's just outrageous, and it makes you lose hope for humanity. Are people really this dumb? Let's see what Obama said about deporting millions of people here.
You know, I'm the President of the United States. I'm not the Emperor of the United States. My job is to execute laws that are passed. And Congress right now has not changed what I consider to be a broken immigration system. And what that means is that we have certain obligations to enforce the laws that are in place, even if we think that in many cases the results may be tragic. There are going to be some stories that break our hearts. And more importantly, we're going to continue to have an economy that is stifled by a really inefficient system where not only are we deporting folks, but we also have a legal immigration system that is so bottlenecked that it forces sometimes people into the illegal system.
How great is he as a speaker? You got to give him credit for that, because the mental gymnastics required here to trick his base into believing deportation is totally fine and killing people is fine. What he basically said was, yeah, I'm going to enforce the law, deport people, and many are going to die. So what? Okay, that's just how things work. And his own base ate that right up. If Trump said that exact same thing, I mean, he would be ripped apart by the media. It just goes to show it's all theater, and not to look too deep into it and not to argue while at the same time picking a side. That's where you're going to fail. All of these demons speak the same way, okay? The same exact rhetoric here. From Trump to Obama, nothing has really changed. And don't forget, in 2014, Hillary Clinton says the migrant children who have entered the country illegally should be deported. We have to send a clear message that just because your child gets across the border, she says, that doesn't mean a child gets to stay. That's right, Democrats were using language back then that would have got them called Nazi tyrants today. Do you see the theater playing out here? Now, this Twitter post exposed the brainwashing nicely, okay? I love this post right here because it goes to show how NPC-like people are, because in between the years of 2003 and 2016, it took the Democrats until Trump was in office to start denouncing ICE in 2017, okay? In 2017, Democrats started denouncing ICE. In 2018, Democrats denounced ICE. 2019, same thing. 2020, when Biden won, Democrats funded ICE. And for the next 4 years, Democrats broke the record for funding ICE. 2024 comes around, Democrats start denouncing ICE again when Trump comes into office. 2025, Democrats brainwash their base into believing that ICE enforcing laws already on the books means they're now Trump's brown shirts and no longer federal law enforcement, simply enforcing our laws. 2026, Democrat voter base start to F around and find out by coming at ICE agents while Democrats pretend to be outraged, pander and raise funds, rinse and repeat. Leftists, stop falling for these politicians' lies. Leave our law enforcement officers alone to do their jobs. The quicker you let them work, the quicker they'll be gone. You doing what you're doing now every day only makes things worse for you and nobody else. It's really interesting. I mean, what are the chances another event happens with exactly enough details to split people so cleanly? You know, each side grabs the details that support their position and ignores the rest. One narrative treats federal law enforcement as tyranny. Another treats violent resistance as justified. My entire Twitter feed, once again, full of the exact same arguments, similar to the Renee Good case. What are the chances? And apparently this Alex Pretti guy just a few weeks ago suffered some broken ribs because he chased after ICE agents, blowing a whistle at them. Yelling and blowing a whistle. That's right, guys. He was blowing a rape whistle at ICE agents. This is so insane. What are these leftists doing? At the same time, right-wing people are demanding a Palantir system to deal with this. Do you not see the chaos and the theater playing out? At the same time, while the left is gearing up for more violence, the right is demanding more aggressiveness on the president and ICE part. They're demanding ICE should have total immunity for anything they do. And hear me out, people. In no time, even the right will accept a digital control system where everyone is monitored, sitting around enslaved in a Orwellian shithole with cameras everywhere like, we totally destroyed those libtards. Yeah. Both sides are being played once again. And how crazy is it that all of this happens one day after I drop my show talking about how the government has weapons that target the brain, that can cause people to exhibit erratic behavior, causing brain damage and even chemistry changes in the brain, causing people to go berserk. Now, once again, I remember I showed Edward Dowd's post a few months ago. This is a former BlackRock employee, and it's interesting to see his predictions for the future actually unfold. I mentioned to you before this Alex Pretti stuff happened. Edward Dowd, his prediction for 2026 was riots. He said this in December 2025. And well, ain't that some shit? It looks like the beehive is getting shook, people. Not by hands, though, but by 6G directed energy weapons targeting the brain. Is it not looking realistic? Is that too far-fetched? Well, prepare to see a lot more chaos in the upcoming months. Okay, that brings it back to the UK. The surveillance infrastructure is already normalized there completely. Facial recognition being rolled out, permanent cameras, centralized biometric systems. The United States is moving along the same exact path here, just at different speeds. This is a great way to end this show right here. Check this out.
If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century.
Literally Hitler.
I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone.
Gestapo.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before.
Nazi white supremacists.
By cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
Wow. That's just crazy. Oh my God. And all of the Nazi supporters give him a standing ovation. Unbelievable. People are being brainwashed and they're too stupid to realize it, both left and right. That's how I'm going to end it. And that's where I'm going to leave it, folks. If you like what I do here, it is greatly appreciated if you hit those links in the description for ways to support the show, because without your support, it does not carry on. No big name sponsors here, no ads. Everything you see here is done by myself. So if you appreciate the effort that goes into this, click those links in the description, folks, for ways to support. Become a monthly subscriber on Patreon or Subscribestar, because you will be the MVP of this show and will be funding the show. You will be the sponsor. So please consider hitting those links in the description. Crypto wallets in the description. Purchase the Eyes Wide Open coffee, organic coffee from Gustavus, Alaska. You will love it. It's my favorite. Please hit those links in the description for ways to support. Until next week, folks, until next time, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the Eyes Watching channel, signing off.